Hello, everybody. I'm feeling good today. I don't know why I got my Raiders hoodie on. I'm feeling festive. I'm feeling the NFL season finally kicking into high gear. My name is Rodney. If you already knew that, thank you so much for coming back and watching another live stream. Raiders Daily on Bleacher Report. We're going 5 days a week here. Momo in for 3 days and then me for 2. I got Thursday and Friday every single week, bleeding over into the NFL season, which is sneaking up. I was doing a little research. I think that was today. I don't know. All these days are kind of blending together now that we're like rapidly approaching summer, which is insane. And I saw that OTAs are right around the corner. Like next week, you're going to have people voluntarily or not showing up and practicing in loose pads. We'll see how extensively they practice once OTAs begin. But like I said, if you're watching live on Bleach Report, thank you so much for joining. Make sure we are voting in all these polls and commenting away in the chat. Thank you for spending your Friday with me. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, hit that like button and comment away. I read all the comments. And a lot of the times I use the comments for inspiration on my videos, and I give credit to people. So if you comment away, your comment might pop up in one of my live streams or videos. So look, you guys saw the title. Where do the Raiders rank in the loaded AFC West? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about off-season grades because I think for the most part, except for the post-June 1st window and some cuts that are going to happen in the preseason, the offseason has wrapped up. So I want to talk about some offseason grades. I want to talk about Gino Smith a little bit more because the more I talk about our schedule and the advantages that some teams have ahead of us, I keep mentioning Justin Herbert as a better quarterback than Gino Smith. And people really are pushing back on that. So I'm going to read a pro Gino article. Where is this article? I think is it on Silver and Black Pride? Let me see. It is on RaidersBeat.com. We're going to see if I can be convinced by the end of this that Gino is better than Justin. It's going to be tough, I'll be honest with you. And also, I feel like I've come up with a new system here, which we'll get into. This is probably the last topic of this video, so stick around to see where the Raiders rank in the AFC. But I've come up with like a grading system. I did this kind of by accident. I was just ranking like the Raiders' skilled positions versus the other teams in the AFC West, the quarterback play, the offensive line, the defensive line, the coaching. And I came up with this number system. It's not that involved or complicated, but I do think it gives you a decent barometer of where the Raiders stack up in this loaded AFC West. And I think you might be surprised as to where I have them falling or rising. So all that to say, let's get into it. If you're watching live on Bleach Report, make sure we're, again, voting in the polls and chatting away. Let's get it on a Friday. So look, the first thing I want to talk about is probably the Gino Smith of it all. So let's just jump right into this. Now, Gino, obviously we know Gino's story. Okay, we've talked about this to death. He was drafted by the Jets. We're going to make the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. It didn't work out. Similarly to Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold, it took 2 or 3 teams for this guy to really reach his final form. And I would say the difference between a Geno Smith or a Russell Wilson, for example, right? The main difference that Pete Carroll's talked about, and I'm using those two because those are the 2 coaches that Pete Carroll had to coach when he was in Seattle, is that Russell Wilson had a lot more wear and tear on him than Geno Smith. Geno Smith, a 34, 35-year-old quarterback, right? I think he's going to be 35 by the time this season starts, maybe middle of the season. He's not as worn down as a 35-year-old quarterback like a Derek Carr might be because he had all these years to kind of sit and rest and work out and learn the playbook and all these things. So I've seen a lot of people saying if Gino was the same age as Justin Herbert, because this is the argument I've been seeing, is Gino better than Justin? Is Justin better than Gino? If they were the same age, GMs would take Gino over Justin. I don't know if I agree with that because if you look at their elite traits, Justin Herbert has an elite arm. Geno Smith might be a more accurate passer, no doubt about it, and that might be more important to you. Geno Smith is a little more athletic. I don't know. I mean, he definitely is more athletic, but it's tough for me to say right out the bat that Geno is the better quarterback than Justin Herbert. So I'm going to read this article here. It's about Pete Carroll's belief in Geno Smith because there's also some intangible things, right? The things that you can't see quantified on the field when it comes to Geno Smith, his leadership capabilities. Again, I'm not saying that Justin Herbert doesn't have those same capabilities, but we're talking about the Raiders, so we're going to talk about Geno Smith's capabilities. So this is the first thing I want to talk about here. This was posted today, so it was a good timing, actually. Raiders head coach Pete Carroll reveals the moment he decided he wanted Gino Smith in Las Vegas. Do we have a person who wrote the article? No, we don't. Okay. The Raiders went into the offseason with an unsettled situation at quarterback, and after coming up short in their efforts to trade for Matthew Stafford, which was our first choice, by the way, and I do think Stafford's better than Herbert easily, it was only a matter of time or a matter of days before the team was able to work out a deal with Seattle Seahawks for Geno Smith. On the outside, many viewed Smith as a short-term answer at quarterback, but based on the way free agency and the draft played out, the decision makers in Las Vegas don't see to view Geno as a stopgap quarterback. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think he's a stopgap, but he's like a 3-year stopgap. Does that make sense? Like, he's not the future of the franchise. I mean, that's obvious. Head coach Pete Carroll has an extensive history with Smith from the time together in Seattle, and it sounds like Smith was the quarterback Carroll wanted from the start. Here's a quote. I was trying to get that done from the moment this thing happened. I was hoping we could do something to get Geno Smith, Carroll said on Brock and Salk. Geno was a backup for all those years. So there were a lot of times where we had to do stuff together to keep him going. And he was keeping me going, but I was keeping him going. What he demonstrated to me was this remarkable connection and spirit to be ready, knowing that the very next play he might be in the game. He never forgot that. His resolve about that I thought was so exceptional that when he got his turn, I was thrilled for him. Additionally, Carroll and Smith's presence in Las Vegas has already begun to change the culture. This opportunity came up and we needed a quarterback. Really, it was a classic opportunity for us to transition to quarterback and a coach that see eye to eye on everything. Gino has killed it here. He's been such a factor. The leadership he brings, his work ethic, the mentality he brings. It's been a fantastic assistance to turning this thing over. So look, this right here I'm going to highlight. Again, I don't know about Justin Herbert's leadership qualities. I'm sure he's a great guy and a wonderful leader. But this is specific to what the Raiders needed. A culture changer, a program builder, someone who was not being afraid to be written off, right? We know the famous quote. The Athletics' Michael Sean Duggar was one of those covering Carroll in Seattle, and he shared a couple of interesting insights in March about Carroll's coaching methods and his affinity for Geno Smith. Pete knows Geno and probably believes in Geno more than anyone outside of Geno's immediate family. That's nice to hear. The way Pete talks about Geno is the way I talk about my daughter. Wow. Pete really loves this dude, Duggar said on the Just Win podcast. At some point last year, he was like, Geno is one of my favorite stories. He's one of my favorite players I've ever coached. Pete has been coaching since the 70s. For Geno to rank that high means a lot. I think, if anything, it doesn't stop him from drafting quarterback, but it may tip the scale in Geno's favor, more like making it a full-on competition. Okay. So there's nothing in that article so far to convince me that without a shadow of a doubt, Geno's better than Herbert. I know everybody wants to say that, and I'll just throw this out here right now. Where do we rank Geno in the AFC West amongst the other quarterbacks? I'm going to keep my opinion to myself because we're going to get into that when I rank where the Raiders fall in the AFC West. But I want people to be voting. And here's my take on the situation. Geno Smith, interesting. Somebody thinks he's the fourth best. I do think Geno Smith is a more capable quarterback right now than Bo Nix. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. Bo Nix had a good season, but game on the line, fourth quarter, you're down a few points. I think you'd rather have Geno Smith. If we're talking elite physical traits, I think the nod goes to Herbert. And obviously, he's not as good as Patrick Mahomes. We know this. But what was specifically needed for the Raiders, like that article stated, is a culture builder. And Geno Smith seems to be one of the elite leaders in the National Football League. And similarly to Pete Carroll, who's not going to be around forever for us, Geno Smith is not going to be here for the long, long, long haul. He is going to usher in this new wave of Raider football players to make sure that foundation, that culture that we lay out this year and next year and the year after stays in place long after he and Pete Carroll are gone. So maybe Geno is the fourth or third best quarterback in the AFC West. Maybe he is. Most likely he is. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to have a huge impact on this team, not only on the field, because he's the best quarterback we've had since 2016 or maybe 2021 Derek Carr, but he's going to have a major impact, and he's already had a major impact off the field. And I think that's the key to Gino. It's the stuff that you can't really see. He's a top 10 quarterback when you have protection in the pocket. He's a top 10 play action quarterback, but he makes a lot of mistakes as well. I'm not going to come on here and lie to you. Gino Smith is probably the third or fourth best quarterback in our division, but that doesn't mean we don't have a puncher's chance, especially with the team they built around him, which is what Pete Carroll's doing. He's going out of his way, and this is his philosophy with any quarterback. He's going out of his way to make it as easy as possible for the quarterback. Sorry, I got a little distracted. Josh Hart from the Knicks have a 20-point lead. I just got up from my couch and they were up 5. Insane. Sorry, Rod Lay. What's up, Nation? Hope everything was a good day. I'm feeling great. Got caught up with the Knicks, Mets, and Yanks. A lot of New York sports going on. Yeah, Gino's a solid QB. I don't disagree with that. I think he's like 12. He's like 12th best in the league. Bo Nix is probably like 15th best in the league, and Herbert's probably like 10 best. I think that's totally fair. Okay, so again, I'm going to get into my rankings here in a second, but before that, Bleacher Report has posted officially their off-season report cards for every single team. And that is Christopher Knox. This was yesterday. I think it's about time we really evaluate the offseason, and then we're going to get into this new ranking system that I created, which I think you guys are going to be super interested in. Again, it's not too complicated. You could have figured out how to do this yourself, but I do think it actually works out to share some good insight into how I think the division is going to fall, even though I think they're all going to be good teams. So I'll give Christopher a little read here, the intro that he puts, and then we'll go right to the Raiders. Christopher Knox, 2025 offseason report cards for every NFL team. While the 2025 NFL offseason isn't over, the roster building period is largely complete. Yes, some quality free agents remain unsigned, but the draft is over and organization team activities, OTAs, are about to begin. Now is as good as any time to grade how teams have handled the 2025 offseason, which is exactly what we'll do here. Hirings, firings, contract extensions, signings, draft picks, and trades were all considered. As we did with our 2024 offseason report cards, we'll also include the extra credit project for each team that could impact overall grades by going beyond pure player movement. I like that. Last offseason, for example, we gave the Eagles bonus points for focusing on a defensive rebuild. And as we know, the new look defense played a massive role in beating the Chiefs. That's not what the article says. That's what I say. I already read that. Of course, we have yet to see how this year's moves will impact the regular season and beyond. So grades are based on the information we have available. Teams that appear to have significant improvement on paper will receive higher grades than those that overspent, lost key contributors, or failed to address key needs. Franchise trajectories were also considered here because a 12-win team that maintains the status quo has to be just differently than a 4-win team that does not. Okay, so there's the criteria. We've laid the groundwork. Let's go down here to the Las Vegas Raiders. Look at Pete Carroll, Ash, and Genty. So key additions / resignings. We know all these. Gino Smith was a trade person. Edge Max Crosby was extended. We signed Jeremy Chin, Eric Stokes, and Landon Roberts, who are hopefully going to be cheaper alternatives to Nate Hobbs, to Trayvon Merrick, to Robert Spillane. So interesting there. Key additions from the draft. Running back Ashton Genty, wide receiver Jack Besh, cornerback Darian Porter, and then offensive lineman Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant. Key departures are Merrick, Hobbs, and Spillane. They gave us a B- for free agency and trades. I think that's totally fair. The draft, they gave us an A+, and our extra credit project was hire an experienced head coach with an overall grade of an A-. Excuse me. It's hard to know what sort of window the Las Vegas Raiders have with a 73-year-old head coach. However, it's easy to think that the Raiders can field a competitive team this season and over the next few. Having won both the Super Bowl and national championship, Pete Carroll has achieved more coaching success than any coach that the Raiders have employed this century. Big-time facts from Christopher. For a franchise that has failed to find sustained success over the past 3 decades, Carroll and general manager John Spita, who comes from a largely successful Tampa Bay Buccaneers front office, provide hope. And rebellions are built on hope. I don't know if you guys have been watching Andor, but it's been consuming my life these last few days. One of the greatest TV shows of all time. Sorry, I digress. Hey, the Death Star. It all makes sense. Las Vegas Raiders moves in free agency and the draft should provide early results. The Raiders moved quickly to find a starting caliber quarterback, trading for Gino Smith and reuniting him with Pete Carroll. They then used free agency to plug holes on defense that ranked 25th in points allowed last season. In the draft, the Raiders added a pair of offensive difference makers in Ashton Jeanty and Jack Bech. Jeanty, in particular, has the potential to reshape Las Vegas' offensive identity. This is a quote here from Dane Parsons of the BR scouting department. Jeanty is a high-volume playmaking running back. Between his bowling ball-esque frame and elite contact balance, Jeanty's game translates incredibly well to the NFL. Suddenly, Las Vegas has an offense headlined by Smith, Jeanty, Bech, Brock Bowers, and Jacoby Myers that can go head-to-head with just about any other unit in the NFL. Its defense should be better too. Okay, Christopher. Christopher is hyped on the defense. And the Raiders ensure that Max Crosby will continue to be its centerpiece after locking him up with a 3-year extension. A year after being the only AFC West team to miss the playoffs, the Raiders are ready to make a legitimate run at the postseason. So I purposely did not make a poll for this because I want to see some analysis in the comments of the YouTube video and the chat. But here's my takeaway. I don't know if I 100% agree that the defense will be better than it was when it was fully healthy, when Antonio Pierce was the interim head coach. I don't know if it'll be better than that. It will be better than last year because last year we had significant injuries to Trayvon Merrick, Marcus Epps, Nate Hobbs, Divine Diablo, Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby, Malcolm Kuntz. That is 7 of the 11 starters that we had last season that gave us that top 10 scoring defense in 2023. 7 of them missed half of the season, if not more, with people like Wilkins and Kuntz and Epps missing most of the season and Crosby missing most of the season. I do think this defense clearly, just stay healthy, will be better than it was last year. I don't think it's going to reach those heights of 2023. And I think that could be a potential issue with us. But I broke down the schedule yesterday, and I mentioned that we only go up against one elite offense, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. We go up against a lot of good, decent offenses, some that have the potential to be great, like the Commanders. But the key to our season is going to come down to how our offense plays. And on paper, it looks significantly improved, clearly. And I think Jack Bech is the key to all this. If he can emerge as a threat on third and medium to long, and he can be a possession guy, if he can give us that Puka Nacua spark, because people have been comparing him to that, this offense could be something special. Because Jacoby Myers right now is your number one. Brock Bowers is your focal point, actual number one target. Ashton Jeanty is going to be good. We know this. And the offensive line, which was fine last year, is going to only be better with, more experience with JPJ and DJ Glaze, right? So I'm very excited. So here's what we're going to do. I've got a Google Doc here. And I've kind of curated what I believe to be the definitive AFC West power rankings at this point. And I've got a grading system. You can be 1, 2, 3, or 4, and you have a point system. There's decimals involved. And here's what I did. Let me just look at it to make sure here, but I'm not sharing it yet. Okay. So I took the quarterback position, the coaching position, the O-line and the D-line, I combined them, and the skill positions. So I took 4 different groupings, and I ranked the teams from 1 to 4, best to worst. I've listed some people here. I've took those rankings, I added them together and divided them by 4 and got the official grades that I'm giving every team. And what these grades are is the likelihood of finishing in a specific spot in the AFC West. So I'm going to pull this up here. And I kind of just did this. Like I got lucky, not got lucky, but I was just messing around and I was bored. And I was like, oh, this kind of works for a grading system. So the AFC West power ranking splits. This is what I'm calling it. So if we start off with the quarterback position, which I touched on a little bit, here's why I have it right now. And this is a completely fluid list. I believe Mahomes to stay at the top, 2 to 4 could all be different. But for right now, I've got Patrick Mahomes is far and away the best quarterback in the division. Herbert, a slight edge above Gino Smith, although you can convince me that one season and one season alone, you might rather have Gino for those off-the-field intangibles that he brings to a young locker room, which the Chargers could have used in that horrendous playoff game. And then I've got Bo Nix at 4, okay? So that's where I have the quarterback position right now. I don't want to spend too much time on that because we've already discussed that in length. Coaching is going to be extremely important. So I'm actually going to zoom in a little here. Let's see. Does this work a little better? I think this will probably work better, right? So I've listed the offensive, defensive, and head coaches of each squad here, and I've got these rankings as follows. I think without question, the Chiefs have the best coaching staff in the AFC West. They've got one of the best play calling head coaches in the history of humanity. They've got maybe the best defensive coordinator of the last century, Steve Spagnuolo. I mean, he's got 5 championships. Is he going to make the Hall of Fame? This guy just wins a lot. Matt Nagy, offensive coordinator. We don't know how much he does, but he was a head coach. So when you have a head coach in a coordinator position, that obviously checks a box for me. This was really hard for me. I went back and forth on the Chargers and the Raiders, but here's where I give the edge. I think Patrick Graham having that continuity a little bit longer than Greg Roman is going to help us tremendously with that defense. And I do think Greg Roman has lost a lot of people on that defense. And we're getting older, like Khalil Mack and Derwin James. Like we're starting to age out of the prime of that defense. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a second. Greg Roman. Wait. Greg Roman's the offensive coordinator. Roman. Yeah. He's the offensive coordinator. Excuse me. I'm talking about Jesse Minter. You get the same idea. Greg Roman and Chip Kelly, I kind of have that as a push. I give the slight edge to Greg Roman, again, for the continuity. But I do think that's close. I mean, Chip Kelly was a head coach, but it didn't go particularly well when he was a head coach. We have the coaching advantage at head coach. Jim Harbaugh's played in 1 Super Bowl and lost. Pete Carroll went to back-to-back Super Bowls. They both have a national championship, and it's close, no doubt about it. I think this is an extremely close ranking here. And then the Broncos, yeah, sorry. I can't believe I was talking like Greg Roman was the I ordered them the wrong way. That's the problem here. Yeah, whatever. Okay, you get it. Broncos, Sean Payton, Vance Joseph, Joe Lombardi. It's good. Okay, but I think both of these guys heavily rely on Sean Payton, where I think with Harbaugh and Carroll, they are more of, they know their stuff on defense, but they're able to facilitate to their really good offensive defensive coordinators to call plays. And I think when you've got your head coach calling plays, it's just tough to round everything out. Andy Reid has the ability to let Spags do his thing. I think Sean Payton probably gets more involved in the defense than he might want to, although it worked for them last year. They won 10 games. So here's my question to you guys. Where do you rank the coaches of our staff, our coaching staff? Where do you put them in the AFC West? Do you put them first? I think that'd be crazy. Second, third, or fourth? Do you agree with me that it's second? I do think it's really close with the Raiders and the Chargers, and I think it's going to be a theme here moving forward, because I think we're going to be battling with the Chargers for a specific spot. So as you guys vote in that poll, and let me know your thoughts in the comments in the chat, we've got the offensive and the defensive lines here. Okay. The Chiefs' offensive line is really bad. We know this. They're relying on a backup left tackle to be their star left tackle. That's going to be an absolute problem. Their defensive line is good, but again, aging out of the prime. And it did not show up in that Eagles game compared to a really good, phenomenal, elite defensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Raiders, their offensive line, in theory, could be better, right? It could be better. But going off of what we know right now, it's young, it's inexperienced, it needs time to mesh, and only time will tell if Colton Miller can keep that consistent level of play and stay on the field for all 17 games, right? I see a chat here. Pete will coach till the end of his contract. By that time, Harbaugh will have wore out his welcome with the Chargers, and he can become our next head coach. That'd be interesting. I wonder if Chip Kelly is in line to be the next head coach. And then our defensive line. It should be better with Wilkins hopefully fully healthy, Crosby fully healthy, and Kuntz. But we don't know how Wilkins and Kuntz are going to come off those injuries early on in the season. I think the Chargers' offensive line is top 5 in the league. I think the Broncos' offensive line is top 5 in the league. The Broncos probably have close to a top 7 to 8-ish defensive line. And while I think that the Raiders' defensive line is a little bit better than the Chargers' defensive line. I think their offensive line is significantly better than ours. So I gave the edge to the Chargers on that front. So I think right now everything's moving and grooving the way it should be. Skill position, obviously very important. Okay. So I need to end this poll because I cannot read what's on my stream. Wide receiver, running back, and tight end. And I put the top 3 players for each team in terms of importance that I think matter for the teams. I've got the Chiefs at 1. They've got Xavier Worthy, Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Kelce. They've got the likes of Kareem Hunt still there. They've got Rashee Rice. They've got a lot of people that can run down the field really fast. Okay, and they've got, we're not counting the quarterback, but Mahomes is the one giving the ball to all these guys, so that helps a lot. The Raiders, I think, come in second here. Brock Bowers is probably the best player on this whole screen. Ashton Genty, assuming he can be 80% of his potential, could probably be the best running back in the division. Jacoby Myers, all of these teams. Oh, thank you so much, Z Jones. All of these teams would love to have a player as consistent as Jacoby Myers on their team. We've got Trey Tucker waiting in the wings. We've got Jack Besh and Dante Thornton that can make an impact. We've got Michael Mayer. We've got Raheem Mostert. Chargers, they got Ladd McConkey, and then there's a steep drop off to who's their next best receiver. I know they drafted the kid, and I know there's what's that guy's name, Quentin Johnston or whatever. Not really moving the needle for me. They signed Najee Harris, and they've got Amarian Hampton. So they're planning to run the ball a lot. We'll see how that works out. I'm excited to see that offense. It should be interesting. And then the Broncos have Cortland Sutton, Evan Engram, and R.J. Harvey. Is that his name? R.J. Harvey? That doesn't really move the needle for me either compared to the other 2 teams at the top here. But again, it's a solid lineup for the Broncos. They lean more on their defense as well as the Chargers lean more on their run game, which is kind of what gives them that lack of balance. And when you lose, or when you start to lose and you start to trail in the second quarter of a playoff game against the Houston Texans and you need to throw the football, Justin Herbert throws double the amount of picks he had in the regular season in the playoffs because you turn him into J.J. McCarthy. So I do think, I have this pretty lock steady here. Chargers and Raiders are 2 and 3. Quarterback position, those could be flipped. The Chargers and Raiders could be flipped here, but I do think this is correct. Again, I'm not claiming that Denver's a bad football team. They might win 10 or 9 games this season. But going off of this rankings, I don't know how you could disagree with a lot of this. And their defensive line is so much better than the rest of this division that it makes up for maybe the deficiencies at other positions. So if you scroll down to here, here's basically what this means. So I took the positional rankings of what I just did. So I got a 3 here for the Raiders, a 2 here for the Raiders, a 3 and a 2. So 3 plus 2 plus 3 plus 2. I added that together, divided it by 4, and I got a 2.5 out of 4. What does this mean? This means based on the 4 groupings I've ranked AFC West teams on above, the Raiders have a 50-50 chance to finish second or third. You understand that? 2.5. If you round up, it's third. If you round down, it's second. Remember that 3 AFC West teams, I can't speak, made the playoffs a season ago. So here's the full rankings if you add everything up and divide it by 4. The Chiefs are 1.75. That's the best ranking. The Chargers, the Chargers and the Raiders are tied. Oh, this is going to bother me. Hold on. This is going to bother me. At 2.5. And then the Broncos at 3.25. So it's very close here. These 3 teams are very close, with the Chargers and the Raiders being tied. But I think this little ranking system that I came up with and cooked up with kind of works. I do think the race to second is between the Chargers and the Raiders. So what do you guys think of where the Raiders rank in the AFC West after I gave you my rankings there? Do you like my little ranking system there? I feel like I created something that's not too complicated to understand, but kind of works perfectly. I'm interested to see the difference between us finishing first or second or third. And look, there's a world in which, we finish fourth. There's a world in which we finish first. This season, this division is going to be much more chaotic, complicated, I think people think. Somebody voted that we're going to be first in the division. That's going to be very interesting to see. Besh might be the better player by Myers at the end of the season. I would love that. Not because I don't think Jacoby Myers is going to be good, but I think if Besh is better than Myers, that means that he has like 1,000 yards. That would be awesome. So that's where I have the Raiders ranked. I have them ranked tied with the Chiefs in the middle, either second or third. I think they have a chance to make the playoffs. Bleacher Report gave them an A- offseason grade. I'd probably go B+ or A- as well. If you're factoring in the extensions and Pete Carroll and John Spytek, it probably is an A-. Let me know your thoughts on all this. Thank you guys so much for joining me on your Friday. Go out and have a good time. Party responsibly if that's your thing. Watch this Knicks-Celtics game. I'm imagining that the Celtics are going to get eliminated. Do the Nuggets and the Thunder play today? What a time to be an NBA fan. NBA has a problem. The NBA has a problem because their regular season product is so significantly different than their postseason product. It's like unrecognizable, but this is an NBA podcast. Maybe one day Bleacher Report will have me do that as well. If you're watching live on Bleacher Report, thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, hit that like button, comment away, and please be sure to subscribe. It's free, out there, no charge to you. I love you guys. And I'll see you next time.